The Razer Kishi V2 is a little bit of a polarizing product for me. On one hand, I do quite like some of the improvements that this brings over the original, but on the other hand, it takes away some of the best features that the original had. Well, to cut straight to the chase, while I do quite like the Kishi V2, it's not going to be part of my EDC anytime soon. Now let's go over the design of the Kishi V2 because this is quite departures away from the original. As you would expect, you get everything that you should from a mobile controller. You have your two thumbsticks positioned asymmetrically, the AXY AB cluster, the D-pad, a number of secondary function buttons, and of course bumpers and triggers on both the left and right. Pretty standard thus far, but that's not all, because you do get a couple of additional multi-function buttons located right beside the triggers aptly named L4 and R4, which are fully reprogrammable, giving you additional control. And because this is the iPhone edition, you will get a lightning connector which inserts into your iPhone, keeping it snug and tight, and you'll still be able to charge it via the lightning push-through port located on the bottom right. But more on those buttons because this is a key highlight on the Kishi V2. Razer touts the use of micro switches for the XY-AB cluster, as well as mechanical clicks for the D-pad, which provides really great tactile feedback and extremely fast response thanks to the short button travel distance. Honestly, they feel really great to press on, and it does make for a much more tactile and hands-on experience during intense gameplay. And the audible clicks does ensure that your inputs are registered as fast as you possibly can, and you know that it is registered. Depending on the genre that you play the most, this might give you that unfair advantage, especially in the competition scene. The same micro switches can also be found for the bumpers and multi-function button, which feel just as great. It's extremely satisfying to say the least. But perhaps the biggest upgrades are the triggers, because they are now analog in nature. In addition, Razer has really nailed down the pressure curve to provide a distinctly superior experience compared to most of the competition, and especially from their previous Kishi V1. Now, I don't really know what to say except for the fact that it feels just right, exactly what I want a trigger to be. In addition, the new matte finish is so much better compared to the glossy finish of the previous, not only in terms of feel but durability as well. But by now, you might have already probably noticed that the design of the Kishi V2 and its overall silhouette is very similar to its direct competitor, the Backbone 1. And yes, the both of them operate in similar fashion as well. It is a fixed design featuring a stable bridge that can be extended to fit basically up to the largest iPhone 14 Pro Max with no issues at all. It is also noted the word that there is quite a bit of clearance for not just your iPhone, but with your case as well. And depending on the thickness of your case, you can either swap out or remove the rubber padding underneath for added clearance. But do note that you can only really use the thin cases. If you have a case like something like this D-brand grip, which is overall quite a bit thicker, the lightning port can't really get a good fit into your iPhone, providing that really snug fit, so you can't really use it per se. But overall, the structural rigidity is certainly much better as compared to the V1. And it's really comfortable in your hand. You can easily hold it on one side with one hand too, with no issues, and even if you rage during your gaming sessions, it will hold up well. The grips themselves also feature a textured back to provide additional grip, especially if sweat is a concern after hours of gaming. As you can already tell, I do quite like the Kishi V2, and it brings quite a lot of new improvements over the original. But with all that said, it's still not my go-to device, and it's definitely not going to be part of my EDC anytime soon. So let's go over the things that I don't quite fancy about the Kishi V2. The biggest downgrade comes in the form of the thumbsticks. As you can probably tell, these are pretty much the same type of thumbsticks that you can find on the Nintendo Switch, competitors such as the Backbone 1 or even the Jungle Cat from Razer from quite some time before. They are pretty small and don't offer much resistance per se. Basically, they aren't great, and that's especially apparent when comparing to the previous Kishi V1, which feature custom thumbsticks that are much more akin to those found on a full-size Xbox or PlayStation controllers. Now you might think I'm exaggerating, but honestly I'm not. Just take any game that utilizes the thumbstick often and which requires accurate aim. you'll find that the thumbsticks on the Kishi V2 just don't perform well, and you'll miss your aim so much more than usual, it's not even a joke. If your gun remain in Genshin Impact, well, prepare to suffer. Now this next point is really something that applies to all of Razer products and not just the Kishi V2, and that is app support. With the Kishi V2, it utilizes the Razer Nexus app, and you can think of it as Steam Big Picture, but for mobile. In here, it will list games that might be to your liking according to your genre, and most of them would support a controller. Additionally, this is also where you can directly account and link it to Facebook Live or YouTube. It's also where you can remap the controls and update the firmware for the Kishi V2. So it's all pretty great stuff. What's the issue? Well, it's the app in itself. This is yet another app you have to download in order to use a specific Razer product. So right now, I have the Razer Audio app for my Barracuda Pro, I have the Chroma RGB app for my Leviathan V2, I have the Kishi app for the Kishi V1, and now this, the Nexus app for the Kishi V2. And I'm not even going to talk about Zephyr because that requires its separate own individual app. It is getting kind of ridiculous, and all I can say is that Razer really needs one unified app. A single Synapse Mobile that works just like how the desktop Synapse does. Now I do hear that Razer is already working on something like that, so that's good to know, but for now, this is what you're going to live with. Or we are going to live with. And my last major gripe about the Kishi V2 is actually the design itself. While the built-in extendable bridge is much more stable than the V1 in comparison, it doesn't collapse that much for portability. Compared to the Kishi V1, the Kishi V2 is still quite a bit longer even when fully collapsed. It might not look like much, but it's the difference between having it comfortably in my pocket or not, or being able to fit in a small pouch in my bag or not. Additionally, because the bridge is exposed, you might be putting unwanted pressure right down the middle when you have loads of things in your bag packed like sardines. And especially for myself, when I tend to carry as light as possible, every little bit of space counts. Again, this last point might be divisive per se, as it really depends on you, the user, and what your lifestyle is like. But for myself, this just isn't compact enough to be, well, in my EDC. Fast forward a little, let's talk about price. The Kishi V2 retails for about 150 Singapore dollars or 100 US dollars, which is incidentally the exact same price as Backbone 1 in USD. If you're deciding between those two, it ultimately comes down to what you prioritize. If you prefer the Backbone 1 app, or if you like to have a 3.5mm jack, go with the Backbone 1. If you like to have additional multi-function buttons that are reprogrammable, or perhaps you like the tactility of the micro switches, go with the Razer Kishi V2. But the bigger dilemma might be comparing between getting the Kishi V2 or the Kishi V1. You can now easily find the Kishi V1 for a huge discount, going on for about 70 SGD or 50 USD thereabouts, which is basically half the price of the newer V2. And as mentioned, the thumbsticks are vastly superior, and it does collapse into a much more compact form factor that's much better suited for EDC or travel. So if you're looking for a new mobile gaming controller, the Razer Kishi V2 does really deliver. But definitely do take note that its direct competition, the Backbone 1, just offers as much. There are pros and cons to each. On the other hand, if you're already an owner of the original Kishi V1, you would say that an upgrade isn't really necessary. And at the end, if you're someone new who doesn't have a mobile gaming controller and you're looking between the two Kishis, well, it's up to you to decide whether this is worth twice the price of this. Overall, the Razer Kishi V2 has been a joy to use, but it wouldn't be part of my EDC setup anytime soon. Well, if you have any questions, let us know in the comment section down below. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to us on YouTube. Don't forget to follow us on our social channels as well, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Till the next one. See ya!